Coronial courthouse stands resumed. Please proceed.
Mr. Hutton.
Thank you, Anna. Sergeant Frost, my name is... Can you see me?
No.
Sorry?
I can hear you, that's
Do you want to
fine.
come up to the
Sure.
front table? Or just stop for a second. Apparently we can change the image and get it closer to you, Mr. Hutton. I don't think we've done that yet, so. It might just be that we can do this without.
That's fine, thank you. Thank you.
What's that?
You're on there, Tom.
Okay. I'll move. Sorry. So it looks like up like that.
Kids table.
Sergeant Frost, my name is Tom Hutton, and I appear on behalf of NT Health in this matter.
Hello.
Hi. I want to begin by asking you a few questions about your evidence on Wednesday. Firstly, you told Dr. Dwyer that prior to the events of November 2019, there had been unlawful entries involving health clinic staff in the community.
Yes, that's correct.
Can you recall now the details of any of those incidents?
Not specifically, are you referring to the 7th?
Prior to those incidents?
Prior to those, nothing specific.
Okay. I'll see if I can prompt your memory. I understand that in 2019 there was an incident involving a health staff member who lived with a partner from Waidak, and they had their property broken into and a car stolen. Does that ring a bell?
Sorry. Yes, it does. Sorry. Yes.
Thank you. And I understand her partner's wheelchair was also stolen from the house?
Yes, that's correct.
And there was another incident in 2019, as I understand, where a child health nurse awoke to find a man in her house, and she awoke with him in the bedroom and he was standing over her. Is that consistent?
Yes, I believe that was the case, yes.
Right, thank you. And I understand from your evidence that you yourself were broken into earlier in 2019 in UNMO.
Yeah, I think it was actually middle of 2018, yes.
Beg your pardon? Am I correct to say you were alone in the community that night?
Yes, that's correct.
And so that made it a particularly upsetting experience for you?
Yes, it did.
You told Dr. Dwyer that monthly community safety meetings were held in Yuendamu in 2018 and 2019, as well as other communities?
Yes, that's correct.
And you chaired those meetings, and I understand there were 5 standing agenda items, if you like.
Yes, that's right.
And break-ins was one of those?
The kids, yes.
The kids, okay.
Kids, yes.
And another issue was domestic violence, is that correct?
Yes, that's right. And traffic and drugs and alcohol.
Great, thank you. And at times there were action items coming out of those meetings?
Yes.
Were there minutes taken at those?
Yes, there was.
All right. And there was a separate meeting called the Family Safety Meeting?
A family safety framework, that's correct.
Beg your pardon? Thank you. What was the focus of the Family Safety Framework?
It is where you identify, or we have identified, recidivist domestic violence offenders and victims. So those who continually come to note that the serious.
Okay, thank you. And were the participants at those Family Safety Framework meetings similar or the same as the attendees at the community safety meetings?
No, not really. No,
Okay.
they were a tighter group that was more specific and targeted, such as territory families, the clinic, the school. I think the psychologist, Kerry-Ann Chilvers, had come to a few of them. So it was more specific and targeted.
Okay, thank you. Were minutes also taken at those Family Safety Framework meetings?
Yes, they were.
Thank you. On the 8th of November 2019, you were on call with Senior Constable Hand,
Yes.
and I understand that the second call out for assistance that you received that evening was from Vanessa Watts.
Yes.
And Vanessa reported that there'd been an attempted break-in at her property and at the property immediately next door to her belonging to Luana Simons.
Yes, I believe that was the case.
When you attended that call out from Vanessa, were you aware that there had also been a break into Luana's premises 2 days earlier?
I believe I was told that, yes.
And were you aware that 1 day earlier Luana had also had her car windows smashed?
I'm not sure now whether I was aware about that, but possibly.
All right, thank you. Luana was not at her accommodation that evening on the 8th of November?
No, she wasn't.
However, you spoke with Vanessa at those premises? At her
I
premises?
believe I would have, yes. I knew Vanessa, so I would have definitely spoken to her.
Okay. Do you recall your conversation with Vanessa at all?
No, I don't. No.
All right. Do you recall her demeanour?
No, I don't.
All right. Do you recall if Matilda Starbuck was also present?
There was another lady, I don't know whether I knew her name.
All right. Do you remember if you spoke with her?
Oh, I can't remember, sorry.
That's okay. Am I correct to say that weapons or implements were also found at Luana's premises?
Yes, from memory it was a shovel.
A shovel, all right. And there were 2 nearby cars that had been vandalised near to Luana and Vanessa's premises?
Yeah, right next door, I think it was. There was we located a vehicle with the window smashed.
Yes, and that belonged to the midwife in the community? That was a red Jeep?
I thought he was a Whiteack worker. I could be wrong.
Sure. You're talking about the red Jeep with the back.
The red Jeep, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, that's correct.
And the clinic car had also had its belongings taken out and discarded around the car, as I understand it.
I don't remember that, no.
All right. Do you recall observing that the clinic car also had a window smashed?
I don't remember that. On that same night you were talking, sorry?
Same night, yes.
Yeah, no, I don't recall an ambulance window being smashed.
All right. I understand that evening you then, a third call out occurred and you travelled to Ualamu to respond to that call out, and that was a domestic violence request.
Yes.
But there was also further attempted break-ins in Uendamu that evening. Is that your understanding?
I don't recall it now.
All right. There's a promise record that I understand you've authored that indicates there were people on the roof of nurse John Alting's house and on graduate nurse Lisa Meredith's roof. Do you recall creating that promise record?
No, not really, no.
All right. So you didn't respond to their properties that night. You were otherwise required in Ualamu.
That's right. No, we didn't go to anything else after that domestic.
Okay. Can you understand, given the number of incidents that were occurring that involved the health staff on the 6th, 7th and 8th of November, why those staff might feel targeted by certain members in the community?
Yes, I can.
You gave evidence to Dr. Dwyer that you also had concerns that there might be antisocial behaviour after the funeral concluded that Saturday evening in Uendamu.
Yes.
Given staff may have felt targeted by going on and your concerns about antisocial behaviour that might follow that night, can you understand why health staff might have felt unsafe in Uendamu at that time?
Yes.
On the 9th of November, you had a conversation with Cassandra Holland where she attended the police station, am I right to say? And that was... Sorry.
No, sorry, you go. I'll cut you off. Sorry.
No, that's quite all right. Cassandra attended the police station and I understand she put the ambulance, the Uendamu ambulance, inside the police compound.
Yes, that's correct.
Cassandra hasn't given evidence in these proceedings yet, but I understand her evidence will be that you had a conversation with her to the effect of, you said, I understand why the health staff have to leave. We aren't able to keep you all safe here in the community at the moment. Do you recall having a conversation to that effect?
No, not at all. No.
You don't recall that?
No, no.
All right. Do you recall discussing with Cassandra that she either had or would be going around the community to give additional medication to people who needed it for the remainder of the weekend?
I don't recall that, no.
That wasn't something that you discussed?
I don't recall it.
All right. You were taken to a passage in your record of interview where you referred to the Uendamu clinic as the withdrawal of the staff having left you high and dry. Do you recall saying words to that effect to Cassandra?
No.
Can I suggest it's understandable that you would not have held that view at the time of the withdrawal because you wouldn't have anticipated that day that such an urgent health response would be required that evening. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. In your years in the police force, have you been involved in any arrests where the person arrested has required urgent medical assistance?
Not that I can recall, no. No. Certainly not urgent, no.
No arrests where the person has been seriously injured?
No.
in your years working as a nurse, were you ever required to provide a health response or an emergency response to a person who had been seriously injured during an arrest?
No.
Your evidence on Wednesday was that you were shocked about the events that unfolded, and I think we can all accept that. Yes. And that your expectation was there wouldn't need to be any use of force at all.
Yes.
The additional resources that were coming in would in fact reduce the likelihood of a use of force. That was your view?
Yes, definitely.
Thank you. Just one final topic, Sergeant. You were asked on Wednesday about racism, and you said, regarding community police, I don't understand any members who would want to come out and live in the community if they held those racist views. Do I understand what you're saying there, Sergeant, is it would be quite illogical for a person who held derogatory views towards Aboriginal people to choose to live in a remote community? Was that what you were saying in that evidence?
Yes, it was, yes.
Your Honour, I have about 2 questions, but I'm happy to do it from here. I just wanted to check that Dr. Freckleton's happy for me to go before him.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, I can move. It's no drama.
I can see you.
Okay.
I can see you.
Sergeant Frost, it's Sally Ozelins. I'm appearing in this inquest for the Northern Territory Police Association. I just wanted to ask you about some evidence that you gave when Counsel Assisting was asking you some questions on Wednesday about resourcing and staffing levels in the community, and specifically you said that in November 2019 you had a full complement of staff at that time because Senior Constable Hand was relieving there, but you also made some comments about ongoing difficulties because even when you had full-time members, they would quite often leave the community during their days off or rostered days off, and that caused resourcing issues. Can you just explain what you meant by that?
So on days off, members' days off, I can't tell people that they have to stay in the community and be available to me. I can't tell them what to do effectively. So that then depletes my resourcing if I need additional resources. And it's often been the fact that there's only been 2 of us in the community because of that.
So is it the case that if members who live and work in the community ordinarily, if they stay in the community for their rostered days off, they will still be effectively on call or make themselves available for backup if required and things of that nature?
Not necessarily now. In the consent agreement, it's fairly clearly written that you only have to be reasonably available. So we don't get an on-call allowance. So every night we nominate 2 people who will basically be available. Now, if I'm up with another member and I need backup, for instance, if someone doesn't answer their phone or refuses to come to work, I don't have that ability to get any more resources.
So what do you do in that circumstance where you don't have anyone available to call on duty?
There's nothing you can do.
And as far as you're aware, is the term reasonably available defined anywhere?
I don't believe it is, but I think it's well held amongst bush members that it used to be when we got on-call allowance, for instance, that we were available at a moment's notice. Now, those members who go on call and not receiving an on-call allowance, if they want to go for a run or go out for dinner, to go down to Tilmouth Well for dinner, they are actually entitled to because they only have to be reasonably available.
Okay. And the other thing I wanted to ask you about is, I think it's been referred to as the relief pool, and I just wondered, what is that? What is the relief pool?
Back then it was called the Territory Relief Pool, and it was a group of members who were available to backfill members' rec leave, or if it's extended sick leave, but primarily they also serviced the Themis stations.
So those members wouldn't be attached or gazetted to a particular station position. They would just move around the territory where required.
That's correct. They might go out for 3 days, they might go out somewhere for 3 weeks. It's all very dependent on the needs of each community.
Right. And you gave some evidence on Wednesday about how you were never reluctant to seek to have further resources allocated, but I think your words were, I didn't get them too often. How often do you think in your 2 years at UNDMU you sought additional resources or additional assistance and it was not made available?
It was fairly regular that I sought resources, and it was reasonably regular that I didn't receive them. Having said that, there's only a limited amount of people, and the requirement all throughout the Southern Desert Region was quite extensive.
Would you say, and I'm not suggesting anything to you, I'm just asking for your observations, is it the case that something out of the ordinary needed to be happening in the community for resources to be allocated when they were requested? Is that how it was prioritised?
Yes.
So if it was business as usual in the community, you just happened to be down a member, would it be fair to say that that's when you didn't get additional resources?
Sorry, there's quite a few times. I can't recall specifically now. There's quite a few times, but generally it was whenever. I think I said on Wednesday that because I had relief members mainly, that left big gaps in who was out there. So it depleted my resources, and it was also very fatiguing because it was the members that were left out there had to continue to take on that 24/7 on-call role.
Sure.
There was no other ability to have a rest. You're basically on call all the time.
Sure. In your view, in your opinion, do you think that the workload and the lack of resources is a contributing factor in the difficulty in getting members to work at remote stations?
Definitely, yes.
Yes. Thank you, Sergeant Frost.
Thank you.
Dr. Freckleton?
No, thank you. Thank you, Ron. Sergeant, until the tragic events of the 9th of September, had you enjoyed your time at UNDMU?
Yes, I did.
What were some of the positive aspects of it?
I enjoyed getting to know the community and learning who the families were, and you could actually engage with people because you knew who they were, to the point that you could probably have a little bit of banter here and there, and it was good fun. It was, really nice people generally.
You've just been asked by Ms Oslands about some of the difficulties in terms of staffing. What were some of the other challenges of the role of officer in charge at UNDMU?
It's a massive role. I think just running a police station on its own without doing the human resource, the on-call, all the family safety framework meetings, all the CSAPs, just the day-to-day running of the police station was a huge, huge time-sensitive size. But then on top of that, I also had to attend jobs and do the jobs.
And in terms of the jobs, there were multiple incidents of violence, including domestic violence.
Yes.
And is it fair to say that the community is somewhat volatile, with difficulties liable to emerge unpredictably at any time?
Yes, definitely.
And was there a significant incidence of property crime?
Yes, there was.
And did that property crime particularly increase while you were there in 2018 and 2019?
I think in the summer months it seemed to increase a little bit, more than 5 per year.
Right. Now, your attention's been directed to by a letter from Mr. Edmondson to by Mr. Hutton, in fact, to a series of break-ins and incidents involving health personnel on the 6th, 7th and 8th of November. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Was the incidence of those crimes against persons who were working in the community a source of concern for you?
Yes.
Were you conscious that during that period, it was your understanding that Kumanjayi Walker had returned from Kapu?
Yes.
Did Kumanjayi Walker have a propensity to engage in property crime with younger persons who followed his example?
Yes, he did.
Was that one of the reasons why you suspected at the time that he may well have had some involvement in some of these crimes?
There was a consideration, yes.
And does it remain your suspicion, notwithstanding that the one set of fingerprints that were discovered was somebody else's, that he may have had some involvement in those crimes?
Sorry, can you just repeat that question?
Yes, of course. You know from later information that fingerprints were taken of one of the properties and those fingerprints were somebody else's.
Yes, yes.
Does it, notwithstanding that, does it remain your suspicion that Kumanjayi Walker may still have had some involvement in those crimes?
Yes, possible.
Right. Now, you've been asked some questions about alerts that you placed on the promise records of Kumanjayi Walker. Do you remember that?
Yes.
What are the options for placing alerts? What kinds of alerts is it possible for a person such as yourself to place on the promise records of a person of interest?
And can I just butt in, sorry, when you put alerts on, is it a freehand entry or is there something like a drop-down menu? I don't know.
Thank you, that's helpful, Your Honour. I hope you heard the coroner's question.
Yes, I did, yes.
So tell Her Honour about alerts and how they're put on, then we'll know what they are.
Yeah, so there's you into the promise system, there's an alert system, and so you can put a number of different alerts. It could be medical, behavioural, warrants, and that type of stuff. You have freehand ability to put free text on its phone, and then in the text box you've got the ability to actually expand on that alert and say what it was all about. So for instance, a domestic violence order between parties. Both parties would have the domestic violence order, what type of order it was, when it was put on, when it expires, and what the conditions of that order are, and who served it, and productive.
But in terms of putting on alerts, when you decide you want to put one on, is there a drop-down set of options for you to utilise?
Yes, there is.
And could you tell Her Honour, as best you can from memory, what those options are?
There's quite a few of them. Like I said, domestic violence, medical alerts, behavioural alerts. Oh gosh, sorry, I can't think of
Anything to do with drugs or disability or anything of that sort?
Yes, I've got the medical side. Yes, all of that sort of stuff.
And in terms of those matters to which you've referred behaviour? What if a person's suicidal? Is there a drop down for that?
Yes, I think there is, yes.
All right. What if they're violent toward others or toward the police? Is there a drop down for that?
Yes.
And it's what you've told Coronial that then gives you the opportunity in freehand to expand upon that.
That's correct, yes.
Does that address what you're on, Mark? All right. And so what is the purpose of entering an alert in relation to a person of interest?
It's so whoever the person that comes to attention of police can or has got an understanding of what the issues are with that particular person.
So just so that we understand what you're saying, are you saying it's for the use of other police who have to deal with the individual?
Yes, that's right.
So that they can do so more informedly and responsive to any alerts for the person's safety or for the safety of police?
Yes, that's right.
And just remind her on which alerts you put on as a result of the incident on the Wednesday, the axe incident.
I put a violence alert on for Kumanjayi and also an alert of 2 be arrested.
You made reference in response to questions from a learned friend, Mr. Edmondson, about intelligence gathering. And the note I took, and I'm content to be corrected about this, is that you said that intelligence gathering is not activity searching for him. If I wanted surprise, I would not have wanted active searching for him. So that may not be perfect, but could you tell Rhonda a little bit more about what you meant in terms of intelligence gathering in relation to Kumanjayi Walker so far as you were concerned on that evening before the IRT men and the dog handler left the station?
I object to that question in that form. It's not really important as to what she had in mind. What's important is what she conveyed to the relevant officers. There's a big difference between the two. She can have a whole host of thoughts in her own mind, but unless that information was conveyed to the officers who were deployed by her.
It goes to the issue, doesn't it, of effective communication, and if people have assumptions in their mind.
If it's twofold, yes, we need to know, is it on the one hand just an assumption that she had, or was in fact, whatever was in her mind, was it in fact conveyed to the officers?
Sure.
Accept that entirely, Your Honour. There are the two components, what was said and what she intended to say.
Or what she thought she was communicating.
That's right, yes.
I mean, there might be a shared understanding or there might not.
That's right.
And we don't know until we hear from the various people
Yes.
what they understood by the term intelligence gathering and what that might include.
Yes. But what I'm seeking to elicit from her is what her intention is, and then you will hear from others as to how they interpreted what they heard from that.
There might be some training on intelligence gathering, so you might, there might be a shared understanding. I don't know.
Yes, and I'm going to canvass that with you.
Sure.
Thank you. Now, informed by all of that, I'm going to ask you a few questions about the issues, Sergeant. Let's start at the beginning. You referred to the term intelligence gathering. Yes?
Yes. Can I clarify that though? I think when I said intelligence gathering, that actually had come from Constable Kirstenfeld. He said we're going to go out and gather intelligence, so that's where that had come from.
All right, that's helpful. Thank you. What is that a term that police officers use? Gathering intelligence.
Yes.
What does it mean so far as you are concerned?
In respect of this particular night.
No, just generally to start off with, please.
Familiarising yourself with a particular person, looking up information report systems, looking at their profile, looking at vehicles they may have, that type of stuff.
All right. Now you've referred to what Mr. Kirstenfeld said What did you say in answer to the issue that he raised with you?
He said that that's what he was going to be doing, and I said, yep, good.
All right. On the basis of that, what was your understanding of what he and his colleagues would then be doing?
That they would be driving around the community, familiarising themselves with the community, doing a discreet drive past 577 and 511, particularly while it was still daylight hours.
Yes.
Playing basketball with the kids and having general conversations, perhaps doing an RBT, a random breath test station, a myriad of things they could have done.
All right. Now, did you anticipate they're going straight to 577 to gather intelligence as to whether Kumanjayi Walker was there?
No.
Why did you not have that in your head as what they would be doing to gather intelligence?
Sorry, I'm not sure if I answered that question correctly.
That's all right. Let's do it slowly. It's important that we're on the same wavelength. Mr. Kirstenfeld said to you that he was wanting to gather intelligence, and you agreed, correct?
Yes.
Did you expect Mr. Kirstenfeld and his colleagues to go straight to 577 to gather intelligence about whether Kumanjayi Walker was inside there and then?
I didn't expect them to go straight there. However, I would have expected them, while it was daylight hours, to do a drive past there.
Right. Why would you not expect them to go straight to 577 and ask people whether he was inside right there and then at about 7 o'clock in the evening?
Because then you've tipped your hand.
What's the problem about tipping your hand, Sergeant?
Well, then you miss the element of surprise for the 5:30 arrest.
Okay. And now, as it turns out, the 5 men went to 577. They were told he wasn't there. They cleared the house anyway. They received information he might be at or in the vicinity of 511, and they went there.
Yes.
Was it your intention that they, having discovered he wasn't at 7 o'clock at 577, that they go to 511 and gather intelligence about whether he was inside?
No. No. Again, you've missed the element of surprise.
Now, you've been asked a number of questions by our learned friend Mr. Edmondson about the conversation, I think again initiated by Mr. Kirstenfeld, about what the members should do if they came across Kumanjayi Walker. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And you accepted that you were asked by the members what they should do if they came across Kumanjayi.
Yes.
And your answer, just to remind Your Honour?
By all means, lock him up.
Now, what did you intend that to mean?
If he happened to be walking along the street or was in a car that they were doing an RBT.
Right. You had some familiarity with the habits of Kumanjayi Walker, did you not?
Yes.
What did you think was the likelihood of them coming across Kumanjayi walking around the streets or going to his shops?
Extremely unlikely.
Why do you say that?
Because he was generally actively avoiding police, he wasn't one, if he saw the police car, he would hide and run. And he didn't wander around a lot. If he did, it was sort of at night time.
So was it in those circumstances that you did not have further conversation with Mr. Kirstenfeld or others about what they were to do if they came across him? Namely, it wasn't very likely.
Very unlikely, yes.
would knocking on the door of 577 or 511 to ask if Kumanjayi was there have been intelligence, in gaining intelligence or gathering intelligence in police language?
No.
Is gathering intelligence acquiring information, often indirectly, and then analysing its utility or significance?
Yes.
And so might it have been that if the men were in a close part of town and they were in conversation with people there, they might have asked, have you seen Kumanjayi lately?
I probably would have been a little bit, sorry.
Right. A bit more subtle than that?
Very subtle, yes, very, very subtle.
I see. All right. Now, you were asked some questions also by a lot of friend Mr. Edmondson about the time that the IRT team was deployed. Do you remember that?
Yes.
What had been your intention as to when they should commence their high-profile policing in UN?
So are you referring to my initial intention or the one that was in my initial intention in the plan? Or
Yes, I'm asking you about what Mr. Edmondson raised with you. Initially in your plan, you had a time that you stipulated as to when the IRT team was to do high-profile public policing. What time was that?
Yes, 11 p.m.
How did it come about that the IR team left the police station to commence their work at about 7 o'clock?
They indicated to me that they were very happy. I think I said on Wednesday that the 11 o'clock plan was written in there for the benefit of the members coming out because I didn't know their rostered hours. It was a chance to give them a rest. But when they indicated to me that they were happy to continue working, I was very, very happy because of the memorial concert that was on at the night.
And were you happy because that was going to give yourself and others a bit more downtime after you'd worked a great many hours on shift?
Yes.
Did the fact that you were deploying them at that earlier time make any difference to your intentions as to what they should do by way of their duties?
No.
You've been asked some questions again by our learned friend Mr. Edmondson about the provision of medical assistance by Mr. Rolfe and Mr. Kirstenfeld in particular to Kumanjayi Walker. You recall that?
Yes.
And you've been very positive about the energetic and committed efforts that they made in order to try to save the life of Kumanjayi.
Yes.
You've referred to the station having very little by way of equipment to assist in attempts to save someone's life in these difficult circumstances.
Yes.
In fact, did the police station itself have a defibrillator?
No, it didn't.
And was one of the things that the IRT men did, that they went out to their own equipment and obtained a defibrillator for use on Kumanjayi?
I believe it's come from the town cars.
Right. You've been asked too about your memories of the risk that you perceived to those inside the police station and also to members of the community. And you've referred to your own prior experiences, including at Wadeye in 2002, and information that you had heard when you were a nurse and also as a police officer. Yes?
Yes, yes.
You received information on the evening from other members about what they could see out the windows and similar?
Yes.
You received some information from Derek,
Yes,
and of course you could hear the sounds of shouting and yelling from outside the compound,
yes,
and you also could hear the impact of rocks coming onto the roof.
yes,
You also received information about what was believed to be a fire, is that right?
yes. I got told that the clinic was on fire.
On the basis of all of that information and what your colleagues inside the police station said to you, what was your view about the level of risk to the safety of those inside the police station?
I was highly concerned that there was a risk to all of our safety.
And what did you regard as your responsibility to take measures to protect police members and also members of the community if they did make the decision to storm the station?
It was my responsibility to ensure that to try and prevent that from happening and keep the members safe and the community safe and the assets and as the forward commander, that was my responsibility to try and keep everyone safe.
And did you liaise with Mr. Knobs in that regard, the superintendent of Alice Springs?
Yes, there was a lot of liaison between him and I.
And did you take advice from him about what you should and should not do?
Yes, definitely.
And you had Derek and his father and his uncle outside?
Yes,
And were they critical from your perspective in, one, trying to alleviate the anger or sources of threat that might exist outside?
absolutely, totally critical. I don't believe that if they weren't there, I shudder to think what would have happened.
And were they also, through Derek, the vital source of information to you about how dire the risk was and whether you should take emergency measures such as abandoning the station?
Yes.
And did you receive advice?
Your Honour, that's not quite fair
Dr.
to.
Freckleton, there was very little communication between ACPO Williams
yes.
and this officer, and we have the content of that communication in the text messages.
You do, but the point is this, Your Honour. If the situation deteriorated, it was open to ACPO Williams to let Sergeant Frost know that so that she could take appropriate action.
Sure, but he never did.
He did, exactly, he didn't do it because presumably he didn't think that things had got to that point.
Sure.
And so Sergeant...
Just before we go, just because I'm conscious that the community is listening, I don't want the community to think that Derek communicated at any time that the situation was dire. I'm sure that was not your intention.
that's not the intention.
Thank you, Dr.
If that impression was given, I would not wish it to be so.
I mean, I think the communication was extremely limited between Derek and the station, or the people inside the station, and there was certainly no communication initiated by Derek as to really any concerns that he had.
There was
He
one
responded, but
There was
nothing
one.
initiated.
There was just one exception with respect to Your Honour, and that was his message, if you've heard that today, to Felix Alafeo, that the members should stay inside and bolt the doors.
Sure, he said in his statement that there was, he could hear talk in the crowd of people talking about going into the station, and it was then that he told Felix to lock the doors.
That's exactly it. Thank you.
So that's at the very beginning.
Yes, it was. Thank you. Now, on the basis of all of those pieces of information, did you order the police members to make preparations for leaving the police station, should that become necessary?
Superintendent Nobbs did say that order.
And did you relay it to the other members at the station?
Yes, I did.
And given that things did not deteriorate, did you rescind that order and tell the members that it was not necessary to abandon the station?
No, that was the order to return to the station was given by Assistant Commissioner Beer.
All right. So let's just go through the process. You were speaking to Mr. Nobbs, Superintendent Nobbs. On the basis
Yes.
of that, amongst other things, you got the guns out of the cabinets and had them at the ready to be loaded into cars, should that become necessary.
Yes.
And then on
Yes.
the basis of information that you relayed to Superintendent Nobbs and he relayed to higher up, the decision was made that it was not necessary to abandon the station.
We had already packed up the firearms, and I was packing up putting the dogs in the car, and that's when we got the call to go back.
All right. And that was a decision that was made, as you said, by Ma'am Beer on the basis of the information that you provided to Superintendent Nobbs, and presumably he related to her.
Oh, I'm not sure how she came by that information.
All right. At any rate, the decision was made to remain at the station, and it's her honour and the community to understand that that was a decision with which you were comfortable.
Not necessarily initially, because at that stage I think we'd been told that task force weren't coming until the next morning. When we did return back into the station, I was made aware that task force are coming and they're coming tonight, and then I was comfortable.
Because that gave you reassurance that should anything change, there would be sufficient people to preserve the safety of those at the station.
That's right.
Right. Now, there was a meeting that you attended on the next day after which you left the community, is that right?
Yes.
What was the reason why you left the community?
Acting Commissioner Murphy asked me to be in attendance as I was the officer in charge of the station.
And when you're talking about being in attendance, was this a meeting, I think at the basketball court, but correct me if I'm wrong?
Yes, it was at the basketball court.
And was this with large members of the community where further information was given about what had happened and what was going to happen?
I'm not sure what information. I lasted probably 2 minutes, 5 minutes into the meeting, so I'm not sure what was the information that was
I see.
given.
What caused you to last only such a short time and straight afterwards leave the community?
Because it became apparent that the community blamed me for the shooting.
And how do you feel about that?
I was devastated.
And how do you feel about it to this day?
Still devastated.
You can ask some questions about the wearing of Glocks by persons such as yourself and more junior members in community, and you've been informed that it is the wish of, I think was put as a significant numbers of the UNMF community, that police officers not have guns in community. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Now, there is an order that members, in almost all circumstances, carry their Glocks as part of their accoutrements. Is that right?
Yes.
Put that aside for now. What is your view as to the need for members to carry their Glocks in community?
Oh, it's critical. It's part of a uniform. It's something that you hope you never have to use, but if you need it at a moment's notice, and that is to perhaps protect yourself, your members, or a member of the community who is being attacked.
It's been elicited from you, Sergeant, that you haven't yourself needed to use your Glock, your taser, or your capsicum spray. Does that cause you to change your view in terms of the importance of having your accoutrements within community?
No.
A final matter, you've said to Her Honour that you remain distressed about leaving the community in the circumstances in which you left it. Is there something that you wish to communicate to members of the community?
Dr. Franklin, could I ask that down after re-examination? I have about 15 minutes.
By all means.
We'll come back to that, Sergeant.
Thank you, Sergeant. That concludes my questions.
Thank you.
Sergeant Frost, I'm hoping to be about 10 or 15 minutes.
Yes, okay.
In your first interview with police, which was the 13th of November, you were asked some questions about the logistics of picking up members from the airstrip where the ambulance was used. And you were asked about that again when Mr. Murphy, appearing for Naja, asked questions this morning. So I'm just going to read to you your evidence previously about this and then ask you an open question.
Yes.
In your first interview, you said this at page 22, and this is the interview of the 13th of November. So I came up with the plan. I'll just go back one step. You said, while we were there discussing how we were logistically going to safely get members out to the airstrip, because we would have had to go past a crowd of 200 people to do that. So I came up with the plan that there will be a police car, then we'll use the ambulance ladies in the ambulance, and then another police car to ensure the ambulance ladies' safety. And we'll go in convoy under the pretense of going out there to pick up medical staff, which is a decision we made for the safety of the members, and that's what we did. You recall that that's the evidence you gave at the interview?
Yes.
And is that
Yes.
is that accurate?
Yes.
So in response to Mr. Murphy, when he took you to that interview this morning, you said, when he said, do you agree it was a pretense? You say it was twofold. One was so we had enough vehicles to house all the members coming off the plane. They had a lot of equipment and we had to put their luggage and swags and that sort of thing in. I'm just paraphrasing a bit. And you say, and the other one was, of course, what I acknowledged on Wednesday, that there was some level of hope that the ambulance going out might make the community feel comfortable, that knowing that perhaps a doctor was on board. So do I take it, Sergeant Frost, that you don't resile from your earlier evidence that there was some pretense being used by police here?
Yes, unfortunately, there was some level of pretense in that respect.
Will you accept from me that we have heard from the community and family that they feel very hurt that there was pretense used? And I'm paraphrasing again, but that they feel that they were tricked and they don't understand, and they continue to have heard about that. Do you accept that?
Yes, I do. Yes, and as I said on Wednesday, I'm extremely sorry to the community that we had to do that. It has never been a comfortable decision for me, but at the time we had to do that for safety reasons. And again, I acknowledge and I understand how hurt they are by that.
Do you accept that it also puts the health staff in a difficult position to be used as part of the plans?
Yes, and to have one of the nurses come back into the police station injured as she did is something very difficult for me to know that was I caused that. And I do want to apologise to Lorraine for that decision as well.
Sergeant Frost, we've heard from family members that they believe that the level of frustration that resulted in a rock being thrown at the ambulance when it was coming back into the station was because they weren't being told what Kumanjayi's position was. Can you appreciate that level of frustration?
Yes, I can.
I take it from your evidence that you felt that you were in an extremely difficult position there. On the one hand, respecting that the community would be upset, on the other hand, not knowing what the implications would be if they found out Kumanjayi had passed away by then. Is that right?
Yes.
Just want to take you to another topic, which was the evidence that Constable Alfeo gave at trial. Senior Counsel for Constable Rolfe took you to some evidence given by Constable Alfeo at trial. I want to take you to the evidence that he gave in his very first statement to the police, which is at 7-2 for anybody who wants to follow at page 15, but I'll just read it to you. So he's asked by the police officer interviewing him, did you hear IRT and the dog handler having any discussions about any arrest plan or some sort of briefing? And Constable Alfeo said, I think the main plan, Julie's plan was, Julie asked me if I could start at 5 in the morning, and the plan was we go and look for him at 5 in the morning, including the 4 IRT and the dog, police dog. So Julie asked me if I can start at 5, and then if we can get him, bring him back, and we'll call her to come over. Is that an accurate representation of your arrest plan?
Yes, it is.
Mr. Edwardson, Senior Counsel, put to Constable Alfeo at trial at page 371. He said this to Constable Alfeo. In fact, no one from Yuendumu Police Station went out in the community to assist the 4 members of the IRT and the dog handler. Assuming he meant that evening, it's the case that nobody from the community police, Yuendumu Police, went out with the IRT directly afterwards, after the briefing. Is that right?
That's right, yes.
And why was that?
Because we were about to knock off, and the arrest was planned for 5 o'clock. So Constable Alfeo was coming on at 5 o'clock to enact that arrest plan.
Now, I want to read to you a transcript from the Spotlight program, which aired at some point in time. I don't know where this information came from, but a reporter by the name of Denham Hitchcock says this in a piece to camera. They have no idea where Kumanjayi is. And then he plays Zach Rolfe's body cam, which says, go and check inside. And then Mr. Hitchcock says, local police could have helped, but Julie Frost denied the request for assistance. I don't know where he got that information from, but is that true?
No.
If at any stage you'd been asked by the IRT members for further assistance, would you have given it to them?
That would probably alerted me to the fact that they then weren't, they were going to be looking for Kumanjayi. So I would have actually had great hesitation in giving, I would have wanted to understand why they were asking for a local member.
Now, Sergeant Frost, I don't know whether you've watched that Spotlight program, but you've just said it's not true that local police could have helped, but Julie Frost denied the request for assistance. How does it feel to have that misinformation then portrayed about you?
It's disgraceful and very, very distressing for myself.
Do you think if the community hears that, and I'm told that some members of the community have watched that program, if the community hears that it has the potential to undermine the trust that they have in local police, if they think that they refuse to assist the IRT?
Yes.
You, in response to Dr. Freckleton's question, gave some answers about what gathering intelligence means and in terms of the police understanding of it. Have you watched the body camera of Constable Rolfe when he attends the first house after receiving the briefing with other members of the IRT?
No, I haven't.
I'm going
I
to
don't think I have, no.
ask that be played to you. It's not very long. It's at 4-1. It was played during the opening. Sergeant Frost, if you just watch this, and then I'm going to ask you whether or not that's what you intended by gathering intelligence.
Or whether that's what she understood Kirstenfeld meant when he used those words.
Thank you. Did you hear her on a
Yes,
Sergeant?
yes, I did, yes.
Roland. There's a door here, there's a door here. I've got an old man at the front I want to talk to. Want to cover that door? Hey, sir. Hey, sir, how are you? Is this your house, mate? Is this your house? Yeah, Dad's house. Eddie's house, eh? Hey, man, my name's Zach. Nice to meet you, mate. How you doing? Hey, we're here to grab Arnold up, eh? Is he inside? Hey, no trouble. Do you mind if I check inside? So do you know where Arnold would be? Because we've got to get him before he gets busy over that way. Where is he at, eh? He's at the other side. What house at? Can you show me on this photo, eh? So here? So on the outside of this oval?
Just around this area.
Which one? These ones? Okay, I might just check the house real quick. Who's he with over here?
No one but me.
No, who's he with? Who's he staying with? Keisha? Is he your Keisha's dad? Is he with Keisha in one of those houses, eh? Thanks, man. I'll just check this to make sure it's all safe and then... What was your name again, sir? What was your name again? Ethan, nice to meet you, man. Hey, Jimmy, I'm gonna go in. Hey? Yeah, I got this. Jimmy was talking to this girl. Dylan. Sweet.
Hello, Dave.
Hey, guys.
That little fella's just talking to you.
He just left.
Yeah, he's just telling me. Thanks for that, man. Good. If you say quiet, man, don't tell him you were here. Okay? Because otherwise, it's going to end up...
That's the last part. That's it.
They said pretty general, like it.
Yeah. Ethan told me I'm another place as well.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, sir.
That's probably enough then. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sergeant Frost, could you see that video?
Yes, I could.
You spoke about intelligence gathering being something subtle when Dr. Freckleton asked you about it. Is that what you had in mind?
No.
Why not?
That's now, you've just now tipped off your ability to enact or effect a surprise arrest.
I don't know if you could hear these words on the video, but I heard the words from Constable Rolfe, and I'll use the term Kumanjayi instead of his first name. We're here to grab Kumanjayi up. Hey, is he inside? Do you mind if I check inside? Do you know where he is? Who's here? Is that what you understand police mean by intelligence gathering?
No.
Sergeant Frost, if you had known that the IRT members were going to leave the briefing and go straight to a house like that and walk into the house and have that conversation with community members outside, what would you have told them?
I would not have allowed them to do it.
Two further brief matters. Mr. Eccleston showed you what he referred to as a criminal history. I think you've had an opportunity to have a look at the information for courts, which is Kumanjayi's criminal history. It's at 2-4C. Do you agree that's some 15 pages rather than 60 odd?
Yes.
And then finally, in response to a question from someone at the bar table and followed up by Dr. Freckleton, you've indicated that in all your arrests, you haven't ever needed to use your Glock, of course, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
You haven't needed your capsicum spray?
No.
And I think you said you've used your taser once in all your years at NAU or NUU?
No, I had to deploy spray at NAU, not taser.
Okay, I'm sorry, thank you. So somewhere near Daly River, that was your capsicum?
No, that was
Tiwi.
Bathurst Island. Yeah, yes.
Have you ever done that more than once?
No.
So...
I'm sorry, other than the dogs, that's it.
Okay.
Occasionally, if there's dogs.
How many arrests do you think you performed over your 16, 17 years as a police officer?
I'd hate to think. I wouldn't be able to put a number on it, I don't think.
Hundreds, is that fair?
No, I wouldn't say hundreds, no.
Less than 100? Somewhere between 50 and 100?
Possibly.
What tools do you use then if you haven't had to use your Glock and you've only ever had to use your spray once?
Generally, it's a lot of communication, a lot of... we've had to use the element of surprise a number of times, but, it depends on the target, but it's a lot of communication, a rapid, quick arrest, and that's it.
Those are my questions, Sergeant Frost. I apologise for interrupting Dr. Freckleton earlier. I think there was something that you wanted to say to the community.
Yes, Your Honour, I've just got something to read out, if possible.
Yes. Yes, thank you.
To the family and community of Yuendamu, I'm very sorry for the loss of Kumanjayi, and I hope this inquest can provide you with some answers as to what happened on that night to cause your loss. More importantly, I hope that we can all learn lessons from this incident to ensure that this never happens again. Please know that the police officers that come out to work in your community do so because they care about helping your community. We come out to live in your world and we try our hardest to balance your cultural expectations with our need to ensure that the people in your community remain safe. Like everybody, police sometimes make mistakes. We are not perfect, but for myself, I can honestly say that I cared a lot and I tried hard to keep your community safe. Community living doesn't come naturally to police. We often move a long way from our family and friends. We often have little or no rest because police need to be available 24 hours a day. My experience of the police officers that I have worked with is that they come to work in the community because they care about helping the community. The community police that I know care a lot about creating a safe community for Yapa and Cardia. You're a strong and proud community. I thank you for welcoming me back into it in February 2018. I learned a lot from you about your culture, and whilst it was often challenging, I enjoyed my time learning. I know I didn't part on these terms, but I understand the angst I have towards me. I hope that you will accept how genuine I am in saying that it is a tragedy that Kumanjayi died, and I feel very sorry.
And Your Honour, Sergeant Frost broke up a bit there, and the last part of that I think was, and I feel very sorry for your loss. We can ensure that that is interpreted in Walpuri so that the community understand what Sergeant Frost is trying to say there.
Yes. Sergeant Frost, thank you for attending over 2 full days listening attentively to all of those questions and providing the evidence that you have provided about the events as best you can, given the time that has now passed. I know that you have, this is not the first time that you've been in court talking about these matters. I know that the attendances at court have been difficult and demanding, and we very much appreciate the care that you've again given to the evidence that you've been giving over the last couple of days.
Thank you, Your Honour. Thank you.
Is there anything? Firstly, you're excused, and we'll break the link.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are there any other matters that we need to raise for Monday?
Only just some housekeeping about the dreaded witness schedule. I can definitely confirm the witness schedule for next week, and we'll get that out hopefully sometime this evening, but if not tomorrow. I beg your pardon, Miss Walls is 10 steps ahead of me. So that's good. We know where we are for Monday, Your Honour, which is Officer Worst, Superintendent Worst.
And
Assistant Commissioner Worst.
Of the other parties.
No, thank you, Your Honour.
Thank you. We can
All set. Coronial Court now stands adjourned.
So you just said
You want to be unplugged, Tom?
Gotcha.